and welcome to Healthy Start. Today, we're diving into how to lose belly fat naturally without exercise. Whether your goal is to get a slightly flatter belly for the beach or to reduce the dangerous intra-abdominal fat linked to metabolic syndrome and a range of degenerative diseases, we're going to explore the mechanisms behind fat loss, what doesn't work, and how to do it right. This will help you get healthy and reach your goals. I'm a holistic health expert with years of experience, and I'm here to guide you through understanding how your body really works so you can achieve lasting results. I wanted to create this video because I've seen so many misleading videos out there, filled with nonsense. They promise that doing certain exercises for 7 days will give you a flat belly, complete with ridiculous before and after pictures. These give people the wrong idea about what's required and what actually works. When I say you can lose belly fat without exercise, I'm not suggesting exercise is bad. It just means that the exercises most people recommend, like sit-ups or crunches, won't give you a flatter belly or make you healthier. They don't address the underlying mechanisms driving fat storage. Some people want that six-pack look or just a toned appearance, while others are trying to get rid of the apple-shaped body, where most of the weight sits in the midsection. This is a particularly unhealthy place for fat because intra-abdominal fat, also called visceral fat, is a result of insulin resistance. This drives you toward metabolic syndrome, which includes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, diabetes, and more. That's what we want to avoid. Let's start with a bit of anatomy to clear things up. Your abdominal cavity houses vital organs like your intestines. Surrounding these organs, you have intra-abdominal fat, or visceral fat. This fat is supposed to be there, but it's not meant to grow excessively. Then you have subcutaneous fat, the outer layer just under the skin. For a six-pack to show, this subcutaneous fat needs to be very thin, so the muscle underneath can be visible. The muscle itself, called the rectus abdominis, is what creates that six-pack look. But here's the key. This muscle is only about 3/8 of an inch thick, roughly 10 millimeters. If it's not showing, no amount of exercise will make it pop through layers of fat. You can't do sit-ups or core strength exercises and expect the muscle to show through 1.5 inches of belly fat. Even if you doubled the muscle's thickness, which is unlikely for most people, it wouldn't make a significant difference. Some bodybuilders might have thicker abdominal muscles, but for the average person, exercising the muscle won't burn the fat covering it or make it visible. Another myth is that exercising a specific area burns fat in that area. That's not how the body works. Energy is processed systemically, meaning your body doesn't pull energy for a muscle directly from the fat nearby. Doing sit-ups won't specifically burn belly fat. I want to dispel these myths so you understand what's effective. Exercise isn't bad, far from it. I recommend core strength exercises, general movement, and going for walks. These are great for your brain, circulation, and hormones. But if you're aiming for a six-pack or a flatter belly, crunches alone won't get you there. If you're a bodybuilder with very low body fat, toning the muscle might enhance the six-pack look slightly. But for most people, the focus should be on reversing the underlying mechanisms that cause the fat to accumulate in the first place. Let's talk about body shape to make this clearer. There's a condition called Cushing's disease, also known as hypercortisolism. It's usually caused by a pituitary tumor, a hormonal gland that stimulates other glands, including the adrenals. In Cushing's disease, the pituitary produces excessive adrenal-stimulating hormones, causing the adrenals to overproduce cortisol around the clock. This leads to a very distinct body shape. People with Cushing's disease develop a lot of belly fat, both intra-abdominal and subcutaneous, especially in the midsection. They often have thin legs because cortisol breaks down muscle tissue, leading to muscle wasting. Their buttocks become flat for the same reason. They may have stretch marks and bruise easily due to weakened skin tissue. Another hallmark is fat accumulation at the top of the upper back, called a buffalo hump. These characteristics are very specific to Cushing's disease. Now, think about people you know who don't have Cushing's disease but share some of these traits, maybe not to the extreme, but they have a similar body shape. They might have a rounded midsection, thinner legs, or a flatter butt. This is because, through lifestyle factors like stress and poor diet, they've driven their cortisol and insulin levels high, not to the pathological level of Cushing's, but halfway there. This body shape is surprisingly common, especially among people over 50. It's likely that a significant portion of the population has some degree of this issue due to modern lifestyles. Here's why this happens. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Whenever your body faces stress or an increased demand, it produces cortisol to provide extra fuel for your cells. Cortisol raises blood sugar, primarily through the liver, which converts stored glycogen into glucose. When glycogen runs low, the body breaks down muscle protein to create more glucose. This raises blood sugar levels, which is meant to supply energy to muscles or other tissues to handle the stress, whether it's real, like running from danger, or imagined, like worrying about a deadline. But to get that sugar from the bloodstream into the cells, you need insulin. So, cortisol raises blood sugar, and insulin moves it into the cells. Cortisol also suppresses inflammation. There's a synthetic version of cortisol called cortisone or prednisone, often prescribed to reduce systemic inflammation in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or swollen joints. These drugs work because, in a fight-or-flight situation, your body prioritizes survival over healing. Inflammation is part of the healing process, which happens later when you're safe. So, cortisol shuts down inflammation temporarily. However, these drugs, like natural cortisol, increase blood sugar, raise insulin, and promote weight gain in the midsection. They can make people pre-diabetic and cause swelling. Cortisol is also destructive to protein. This is why people with high cortisol, like those with Cushing's or similar body shapes, have thin legs and flat buttocks. The large muscle groups are broken down first. The skin, which contains collagen, a protein, also suffers. This leads to stretch marks because the skin loses strength and elasticity, and easy bruising because the tissue becomes fragile. All these characteristics, belly fat, thin legs, flat butt, stretch marks, bruising, are driven by excess cortisol. If your lifestyle leads to a body shape like this, it's a strong sign that your cortisol levels are too high. I get frustrated when I see videos promising a flat stomach in 7 days with 9 specific exercises. They give false hope and make people feel guilty when they don't see results, as if they're not trying hard enough. There's no quick fix. You won't reverse years of hormonal imbalances in 9 days, 3 weeks, or overnight. Should you exercise? Absolutely. We've covered this in other videos. Are sit-ups helpful? Yes, they strengthen your core, which is good for your brain and overall stability. But they won't burn belly fat or give you a flat stomach. What about aerobics? Aerobics classes, like spin classes or high-energy sessions with upbeat music, are often mistaken for aerobic exercise. In reality, they're anaerobic. When you're huffing and puffing, sweating, and pushing yourself to go faster, you're not doing aerobic exercise, you're triggering cortisol production. This makes the problem worse. If you're exercising in a way that causes you to huff and puff, you're raising cortisol, which raises blood sugar, which triggers insulin. Both hormones then deposit fat right back in your midsection. If you have a body shape driven by high cortisol or suffer from adrenal fatigue, avoid exercises that make you huff and puff, with one exception: high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, done correctly in small doses. If you have intra-abdominal fat or a lot of subcutaneous fat, it's a result of hormonal imbalances, specifically high cortisol and insulin. Exercising in a way that stimulates these hormones will worsen the problem. At best, you might burn a few extra calories and feel good from the endorphins, but you're pushing your body into a carbohydrate-based metabolism. This leads to cravings, and while you might resist them for a few days or weeks, it's not sustainable. When you give in, you feel guilty, thinking you lack willpower. The truth is, you're not addressing the root cause. The idea of no pain, no gain doesn't apply here. Pain is stress, and stress triggers cortisol, putting you right back where you started. The only time pain in exercise is beneficial is if you're training for peak performance, like an Ironman or a track event where you need to produce lactic acid for short bursts, such as a 400-meter or 1500-meter race. For general health and fat loss, pain is unnecessary. So, how do we reverse the underlying mechanism? We focus on reducing insulin and cortisol. Step 1. Eat less sugar. Adopt a low-carb, high-fat diet and consider a ketogenic diet, depending on the severity of your insulin resistance. Most people benefit from being in ketosis at least some of the time. You don't always need to stay in ketosis, but it's a great way to see how your body responds. You can alternate between keto and low carb. Combine this with intermittent fasting. Sugar and carbohydrates drive insulin, and eating them multiple times a day stimulates fat storage repeatedly. Intermittent fasting means eating fewer meals, ideally with zero carbs during fasting periods, giving your body a chance to reverse the fat storage process. These tools, low carb, keto, and intermittent fasting, grow in power. Low carb is effective, keto is more effective, and intermittent fasting is the most powerful. Next, incorporate low-intensity exercise, meaning truly aerobic exercise where you're not huffing and puffing. Examples include walking, easy bike rides, or rollerblading at a pace where your breathing stays slow and steady. This is aerobic exercise, meaning with air. When you're aerobic, your body burns primarily fat, especially if you're fat adapted. As soon as you start huffing and puffing, you switch to burning carbohydrates. In aerobic exercise, fat is the dominant fuel source. In anaerobic exercise, carbohydrates dominate. Low-intensity exercise is key, and you can do it for 30 minutes a day or longer, 60, 90, or even 120 minutes if you have time. It's not fatiguing because you're operating within your aerobic capacity with infinite fuel from the oxygen you breathe and the fat on your body. You can also add a small amount of high-intensity interval training. HIIT involves very high intensity for very short periods, 15, 20, or 30 seconds followed by rest. You repeat this 4 or 5 times to get your heart rate close to your maximum, and the entire workout takes about 5 minutes. HIIT does produce cortisol, but because it's so brief, it doesn't significantly impact your overall hormonal balance. The benefit is a 3 to 400% increase in growth hormone, which is muscle sparing and fat burning. Growth hormone counteracts the effects of cortisol. While HIIT produces cortisol for a few minutes, the growth hormone benefits last for days. Fasting also boosts growth hormone, so combining HIIT and fasting puts you in the best position for fat loss. Cortisol is produced in response to stress, not just from exercise, but also from emotional stress. Anytime you feel frustrated, tense, upset, angry, or overwhelmed, your body makes cortisol, raising blood sugar to provide energy for fight or flight. But if the stress comes from sitting in traffic, looming deadlines, or screaming kids, you're not using that extra glucose through physical activity. Insulin moves the excess glucose into cells, where it's converted back into fat, primarily in the midsection. Stress management is critical, and for some people, it's as important as diet and exercise combined. Cortisol turns sugar into fat, protein into fat, and deposits it in the belly. Reducing stress is a powerful tool for reversing this cycle. To lose belly fat, we reverse the underlying mechanisms by addressing all these factors. Can you do it without exercise? Yes, but exercise isn't optional for overall health. The key is to avoid the wrong kind of exercise, which perpetuates the problem. By focusing on a low-carb or ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, low-intensity aerobic exercise, small amounts of HIIT, and stress management, you can reduce insulin and cortisol, boost growth hormone, and burn fat naturally. Different people may find one component more critical than others, but for the best results, incorporate all of them. Anything that makes you healthier is worth doing. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, save it to your playlist, and share it with friends and family who could benefit from these natural strategies. Subscribe to Healthy Start and hit the bell icon to turn on all notifications so you never miss a life-changing video. Let's take control of our health together, one step at a time.